So yoga is actually the technology of humanity. It's the technology to help humanity evolve. Yoga is a Sanskrit word meaning unity. And unity, union of the mind, the body, and the spirit. So it's not just what the West thinks it is. It's not just asana, which is the physical postures, and it's not about being, bendy. It's a very deep, very profound technology. And ironically, scientists now are catching up with what yoga has been saying through its texts for thousands and thousands of years. So it's a scientific technology to help humanity evolve. One of the main things that yoga teaches us is that we are not in control. And I think us humans have had this false idea that we're totally in control of our lives. We go on in our daily lives thinking that it is about us and about what we want, but in actual fact, it's not. And during this time of COVID, I think Mother Nature has kind of like forced us to realize that we're not in control, and forced us to realize that we need to do some serious self-study, not only individually, but as a collective globally, in order to really come out of this in a positive way. So what it teaches us is to let go and to surrender, and to be able to approach anything that happens in our lives with ease and with grace. My teacher in India says to us all the time, a seer only sees on the level of its consciousness. So we could either look at this time of COVID as being a time of despair and distress, or we can look at it as a time when we can take a good evaluation of how we are and work towards evolution, work towards positivity, and work towards progression. Humans tend not to like change. And we can either change in a positive, progressive, evolutionary way, or we can change in a destructive and regressive manner. And so I hope that I invite you after this my presentation that we all choose to progress and to evolve. So there's yoga, and then there's the integrative practice of yoga. In yoga, there's many different facets. We have meditation, we have breath work, we have physical postures, asana, we have jnana yoga, which is wisdom, we have the devotional aspect of yoga. But if we approach our lives in a reductionary way and just think of it as we're just going to do breath work and that's going to help us, it doesn't really work. We have to integrate it into our lifestyle and integrate all the aspects of this humanity, technology of humanity, into our lifestyle so that we can really see change. And so I'm going to go through a list of lifestyle tips, I call them, and it's all practices of yoga, very simple, fundamental practices that can help us so that we can actually learn to surrender into change, surrender control, and to experience life with ease and also, like I said before, with grace. So let's begin with the first aspect, and I call it, well, in yoga we call it Sangha, but it's really our network of friends. We want to keep our network of friends positive, progressive, so our communication is uplifting and upgrading. Avoid any communication or contact with people that are filled with fear. If you find anyone filled with fear, uplift them. Fear affects the nervous system, which affects the immune system, which we know we become more susceptible to COVID if our immune system is lacking. So surround yourself with positive, progressive, evolutionary people that are on a path to really upgrading and uplifting our consciousness. We want to constantly be refining our intellect, refining our communication, And so this is a very important, it's also a means in which we can really get support so that when we're feeling down, we have that support system to lift us up and vice versa. So that Sangha, that network of friends is a very, very important part of yoga. The second aspect is meditation. Now, what meditation does is it allows us to acquire a witness consciousness. We're able to actually sit and witness our thought patterns, witness our behavioral patterns, and shift from negative and destructive, regressive thought patterns and behaviors to progressive. I use the word evolutionary a lot, but I think it's very relevant, and positive thought patterns. And so when we're sitting in meditation, we really are witnessing our thought patterns. It's not just emptying the mind, it goes far deeper than that. We're actually shifting the way we think and the way we believe in ourselves and in life. And so find a meditation teacher. Don't try to do meditation by yourself because you'll think it's too difficult and you'll fail. Find a meditation teacher that teaches authentic ancient techniques and you will thrive. So meditation is very, very important. The next aspect is breath work. I was so delighted to hear at the beginning of the presentation that we actually introduced the session with breath work. Breath work is very important. Our breath is our life. If we don't breathe properly, we're unable to control our emotions and our behaviors. And so, but it goes far deeper than just calming the nervous system, de-exciting the nervous system. It goes deeper than energizing, and it actually goes deeper than even affecting our digestion. It does those things, which is very relevant in our everyday lives. But breath work can be a very powerful way to shift the energy of our physical, our emotional, and our mental bodies. There's a book by a doctor friend of mine by the name of Bruce Lipton, and the book's title is The Biology of Belief. And he shares, he's a scientist that was rooted in, the traditional forms of science. He was doing all these great experiments and was getting all this grant money to do certain studies. And then something personally shifted in his life, and it had to do when he started to meditate and when he started to practice yoga. And he's now teaching people that you can change your biomemory. You can shift traumas. You can shift, and at a cellular level, you can shift all these things and actually change your DNA through the powerful practices of, say, Kriya Yoga, which is the evolutionary yoga, using powerful breath work, and through meditation and through different yoga practices. So when we talk about breath work, on a surface level, yes, it can calm us, and it can ignite our digestive systems, and it can do all these wonderful things, but it has the power to change humanity and to really shift conditioning, all the stuff that really limit us as a human being from really stepping into our infinite potential of being. So breath work is incredibly, incredibly powerful and important. The next aspect is self-study. One of the things that this time of COVID has done, it's kind of like I think I said before, Mother Nature has literally forced us to rest. And in this time, we could either do some serious self-study and go inwards and really change for the better, or we cannot, and we can regress. This time is, if we look at it as a gift from Mother Nature, to really turn back from that external stimuli that we've been so used to, all these stimulations from the outside world. One of the reasons why we're finding that domestic abuse, alcoholism, drug abuse, all these things are becoming heightened in this time is because people are looking for ways to cope. But instead of going inwards, we're reaching outwards, and it's not doing us any good. So this time really is a time to sit and to do, in yoga we call it swadhyaya, self-study. To sit in stillness and to really look at our patterns of behaviors and thoughts on an individual and on a collective level, and to really decide that we want to change. And I think one of the most important lessons from this time is that it's a time for self-study, and it's a time to really evolve, to take that time out and to work on ourselves. You know, there's so much about life that we can appreciate or not appreciate. And this time is really to look at it as an opportunity to, when we come out of it, we're not necessarily going back to normal, but we're stepping into a new, extraordinary phase of humanity. Self-study. And like I said, in stillness, when we connect to that creative intelligence that's out there, if you want to call it God, if you want to call it Divine Mother, answers arise. Once we sit in stillness and we go inwards, answers certainly arise. Practicing self-study also allows us to develop compassion for others. But most importantly, we develop a sense of self-love. And with consistent moving towards progression and positivity, we'll find that we begin to hold ourselves in excellence. We begin to hold ourselves with a high standard. Then learning to forgive ourselves every time we fall short. And then stepping back up, learning that there's no end game to this progression and evolution. It's constant work and it's constant practice. The sixth aspect, and I think it's the aspect that most people are familiar with when it comes to yoga, but it's actually a very small part, and that's the physical postures, the asana. What the physical postures do is it allows us to release any physical tension in the body, so that prana, which is that life force, that energy, can flow freely. You can practice asana or any form of movement. Dance is a lovely way to release tension in the physical body. And it's also a very nice creative expression. But if you're practicing these ways in which releasing tension so that energy can flow, prana can flow, and prana is information. So you could release so that prana can flow, but if we don't change the information that's flowing, change the information from regression to progression to positivity, then asana really isn't doing much good for you. So that's where the things that I've mentioned before comes into play. Constant working, meditation, self-study, breath work. All these things must first be light, be positive, before asanas can do any good. If we're allowing dense and negative energy to flow, then we're not really evolving. So again, meditation, breath work, keeping your circles of friends positive, less gossip, less negative talk, less fear, keep it progressive, seeing the light during this time. The next aspect that I find very important is sacred rituals. And every spiritual path has sacred rituals. My mother, she's a Catholic, and she goes to Mass every day. Well, when you could physically go to Mass, now she goes online. But she would go to Mass, she would read her Bible, she would do her rosary, and then she would go and walk on the grass early morning. That was her sacred ritual. In my yogic path and in the tradition that I follow, I do puja every morning. And I do japa, which is very similar to rosary. But these sacred rituals done usually early morning or in the evening, what it does, it sets a tone for your day of devotion and gratitude. And once you have this tone of devotion and gratitude, you can face your day again with ease and with grace. Undeniably. The next aspect is prayer. Prayer is that personal communication with the divine. It is your communication without masks, without opinions, without ideas. It is your pure, naked self communicating to the divine. It is the time when you could offer your intention and then surrender that intention in deep trust, allowing the divine to guide you. So prayer is very important, and it's very important especially in these times. The next aspect is selfless service. You see, this is all yoga. It's not just asana. Selfless service, or in yoga we call it seva. And this is when we take the focus off the I, the me, the ego identity, and we place it on others. Offering kind words to someone, maybe calling an elderly person who might be lonely, offering food to a family or an individual, offering clothing, but doing all these things without any expectation with anything in return. Truly doing it only from your heart. Seva, selfless service. And then also healthy eating. Try to eat things that are less canned, less processed, things that are close by, so things that are food and produce that hasn't traveled too far. Keeping it healthy, filled with fruits and vegetables. In yoga, we actually have a sister science called Ayurveda, which teaches us how to eat according to our own personal body type. Connecting to nature. Nature can be a really, really simple way to heal and to energize. One of the things that my mother does is earthing, and that's taking off your shoes early in the morning and walking on grass when the dew is still there, or sand, connecting to the energy of earth. This can help with reducing inflammation, and from that, strengthening your immune system, de-exciting your nervous system so that you can sleep better. These are natural, really wonderful ways for you to heal. Try it. Develop an environmental consciousness. Do you know, I think it's ironic. The human species is the only species that's freaking out about COVID. If you look around, all the other species of animals are thriving. So develop an environmental consciousness. Use less plastic, reuse. When you go to the supermarket, take your own bag. Don't rely on the plastic bag that the supermarket gives you. Think of it as a holistic approach to your life. So I hope I've explained a little bit more about what yoga is. That asana part, it's not going to a class for an hour and doing some stretching. And I think as humans, we are built for expansion. We're built for growth. We're built to lean into change. And so I think this time of COVID is a time for us to really work towards that. So that when we come out, like I said before, we're not returning to normal. Normal wasn't working for us. We've been there. We've done that. We step into extraordinary and truly evolve. So, with that being said, I thank you all so much for listening to me, and for allowing me to share what yoga is and really what yoga means to me. Thank you so much. Namaste.